early on, which is that I was just basically parroting DeSantis talking points. I don't think that's what I'm doing here. Just sort of trying to correct some misconceptions as I was following the story, since I do cover the culture beat for the Daily Caller. I was just noticing people were headlining the issue. I even watched some of your coverage of it. As people were headlining the issue as banning an African-American course. What I'm saying is they did not ban it, they failed to approve it. And there's a big difference there. And I think it should.
That's a distinction that doesn't make a difference. When you say, no, we're not going to allow, and by the way, black AP students who are advanced level students are the ones most likely to take this course. We all know that, that pans out in the data. When you say we're going to not allow it, okay, fine, call it a ban, call it not allowed, I don't care. The reality is, what is your good faith basis to say no? Can you present to me a good faith basis where they have denied the entry of this particular pilot program known as AP African American Studies?
Well, again, I'd say that this is the Florida Department of Education taking issue with certain parts of the course, which it has every right to do. That's my point. It was a proposed course. It was a pilot program. The College Board was testing it out in, I think, 60 schools. And Florida basically said, no, you need to go back to the drawing board on this, and you need to fix some things about it. DeSantis has said African-American history is something they want to teach in their course. Certainly, if he wanted to ban all teaching of Black history, that would be hugely problematic.
Yeah, but okay, understand this. You have said the board has the right to do this. Just because a board has the right to do, it doesn't mean it is right to do. That's a completely different conversation. Local governments had the right to tell Black folk where they could and could not sit in a restaurant. They had a statutory right that was codified by the Supreme Court at that time. That did not make it right, correct?
Oh, I absolutely agree that there's a distinction between legal right and moral right. Yeah, I'd agree.
Okay. Sure. All right, now, just because the board had the right to reject it, which we know by way of authority they do, it doesn't make it right to do so. What is their good faith basis? Why? Why are they saying no? It can't be for reparations as they cited, because they teach reparations currently. Can't be for prison reform, that's a non-controversial idea. Can't be for critical race theory, not even taught in this particular curriculum. So what is their good faith basis is my question to you.
I believe, from my following of the story as a reporter, I believe that one of the things they pointed to is that when in discussions of reparations, which I absolutely agree probably should be something that's discussed in a course about African American history, there wasn't really any arguments against reparations set up. And I think that would be something that would be good to see in this course, is sort of competing opinions on issues like reparations, on issues like prison reform. I do know the course did cite Kimberly Crenshaw, a critical race theorist. How that's a very hot topic. I know for some people, maybe it's not so much of a hot topic, but I do know for a lot of parents of Florida students, they're going to see a critical race theorist cited in that course, and they're going to be
a critical race theorist. A critical race theorist. Bam, how much do they get paid per year?
Critical race theorists?
Yeah.
Well, Ibram Kendi breaks in hundreds of thousands for his lectures.
The lectures about critical race theory does not make a person, in summary, a critical race theorist. I learned critical race theory. I've been teaching it at the college level since 2016. That doesn't make me a critical race theorist. And by the way, if a person was, it doesn't mean it's bad. Do you know what critical race theory is yourself?
I have read some of the literature. I did a couple summers back when this was a very hot topic. It is a very complicated issue, granted, and I do know there are some instances in which that word is sort of used as like a catch-all phrase for like anything that deals.
Is used wrongly, right?
Yes, there are definitely cases where it's used wrongly.
All right, so but do you know what critical race theory is?
I'd say it's looking at power structures, what they would say critically, and what they would mean by that is looking at sort of the power structures of there's an oppressed class and there's an oppressor class.
Do you agree that that's real?
Oppressed class are Black people and the oppressor class is white people. I think in many cases, white people sadly have oppressed Black people in history.
But do you think there's innate biases inside of systems and laws because of that bias?
I think it is reductive to sum down all power structures to have to do with the color of someone's skin.
Okay, but that's not what critical race theory does. I'm asking, do you believe that there is structural racism in the United States of America, codified inside of statutory language, policies, and also institutional norms?
That's an extremely broad statement, and I'm going to be very hesitant to just agree with that.
Kind of agree, somewhat agree. Do you disagree?
Very broad statement, so I'm not gonna fall into that trap.
Have you ever experienced structural racism or structural genderism?
Not personally.
Okay, do you know anybody who has?
I definitely know people who have experienced racism and people who have experienced sexism. I think so. The word structural is
structural.
Broad.
Yeah, structural.
I would like maybe some more specific examples of that.
When the Declaration of Independence calls Native Americans savages, they are called savages because white savages are the ones who wrote it. And it found itself into actual legal doctrine. That is called structural racism. Does that make sense?
Okay, that's an interesting definition of it. I would just call that racism,
but it is in a structure, madam. It has now been contextualized in a structure that is adopted as authoritative literature in courts. That makes it structural.
Okay, so your definition of structural, I just want to get it correct because a lot of people use that word for many different things. Your definition of structural is if it's used in legal components.
Well, structural legal components is one dynamic of a structural element. That's normative. That's not anything that's, I mean, I would like to be an out of the box guy on this, but I'm not. That's pretty common.
Okay.
All right. I actually think you agree with me more than you're willing to admit today, madam. But I do appreciate you being on the show today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Ritchie.
All right. Remember, take care of yourself, take care of each other, take care of the planet. Remember, the truth is always indisputable.
Hello, and thank you so much for joining us today on Unbossed. You make our show so wonderful. And today, my co-host is none other than Francesca Fiorentini. She is the host of the Situation Room.
Yes.
Francesca. What's going on in that room? I want to know.
All the good things. We have comedians, we have experts, we have activists every single Tuesday, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. Yes, it overlaps with this show, but I remind you that it is also available as a podcast. And it is the only place you can see me now because the Twitchuation room has gone goodbye. It's gone. It's led a great life. And maybe it'll come back in some other iteration. But for now, Nina, it's so good to be on with you. It's a Friday. Maybe there's some good news. I don't know. I can't imagine there is.
We're gonna try. We're gonna end the show with some good news, but we're starting off with some really heavy stuff. But glad that the Tribulation room is still going strong. Please join Francesca there. Maybe you can divide your time between the both of us. You know?
Oh, that's what I do. Everybody, I'm also a few like 100 shy of 40,000, which for me is a big number. Yes. Over there at Franny Fio. So youtube.com/Franny Fio. Give me a subscribe, please.
Please do that. Please do that. And tell a friend and a friend of me, okay? Will you do that for us? So today, Francesca and I on the show, we're talking about the nation is bracing for the footage to be released of the murder of Tyre Nichols. We're going to discuss all of the angles or many of the angles of this horrific situation. The field for Senator Dianne Feinstein's California seat continues to grow. People are throwing their hats in left and right. We'll see what happens there. And then later in the show, a Florida GOP congressman sent his colleagues grenades as a welcome gift to the House. Absolutely cannot make this stuff up. So to the heavy, hard stuff first. Take a look.
That was my baby. He was a mama's boy. That boy loved me to death. He has my name tattooed on his arm. I was in the room earlier and my stomach started hurting so bad. And I went into the den. I told my husband, my stomach is hurting so bad. And once I found out what happened, it was just the fact that I was feeling my son's pain. I was feeling my son's pain when they were beating him to death.
That's Tyre's mother. I'm trying to hold it together myself. I can definitely feel her pain. You don't have to be a physical mother to understand where this mother is coming from, but if you are a mother, you especially feel the pain. I'm telling you, Francesca, tears are welling up in my eyes. Her son is not much younger than my son. They are of the same generation. It's very heartbreaking when she said that she could feel her son's pain. She laid out there about how close she and her son were, calling him a mama's boy, meaning he loves his mama, which is a beautiful thing. So it's been almost 3 weeks since the traffic stop in Memphis led to a violent arrest, and 3 days later, the death of Tyre Nichols. And here's a breakdown of the events, just in case some of you might not have been following this story from the beginning. On January the 7th, around 8:30 p.m., Memphis officers pulled over a vehicle for suspected reckless driving, according to a statement from Memphis police. A confrontation occurred between officers and the vehicle's driver, later identified as Nichols, who then fled on foot, according to Memphis police. Officers apprehended him and another confrontation occurred, resulting in Nichols' arrest. And as we said in the opening, not only was he arrested, the family has already seen the video that is going to be released later today, so they know exactly what it is. And he was beaten, and 3 days later, he died. Also unclear are who was involved in the initial police encounter, how far Nichols fled on foot, how officers apprehended him, how long these confrontations lasted, or why officers felt compelled to confront Nichols twice. On January the 10th, 3 days after the stop, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation announced Nichols had died due to injury sustained in use of force incident with officers. According to a statement, Nichols suffered extensive bleeding caused by a severe beating, according to preliminary results of an autopsy commissioned by attorneys for the family. This reporting is coming from CNN. 5 Memphis Police Department officers who are also Black. Tyre Nichols was Black. These officers, each and every one of them are Black. There they are. Were fired after an internal investigation and are facing criminal charges. Now, Martin III, Smith Bean, Haley and Mills Jr. have been charged with the following: second-degree murder, aggravated assault, 2 charges of aggravated kidnapping, 2 charges of official misconduct, 1 charge of official oppression. Never even heard of that when it comes to law enforcement. Oppression, official oppression. Now, many questions remain unanswered, as we all can understand. Investigation ensued. This just happened on January the 7th. Everything is out there, waiting on the video to be released, the family. So a lot of questions are still unanswered. The footage of the incident will be released today. So Francesca, I mean, I'm really shaken up by this whole thing right now, trying to hold back the tears, because you can definitely feel that family's pain. And as the mother is the spokesperson at this moment for the family, it is easy to see why she is all broken up about this. This is really out of the natural order of things, for parents should not have to bury their children. I mean, we know it's a part of life, it happens, but that's not the natural order if Mother Nature is working according to plan. And then secondly, a traffic stop should not turn into a death sentence.
No. And of course, we cannot forget that, how many times have we seen Black mothers crying for their children who've been murdered by police, right? Now imagine if they were all white. Just for a moment, just stop and think, what if they were all white? Do you think our country would continue to give money to a violent, menacing police force the way it does? No. Do you think our country would start to, dare I say, defund the police? Yeah, I think so. If they were all white mothers losing their white children time and time again, because that's the nature of white supremacy. That's the nature of this country. But so it is heart-wrenching. It is awful. And exactly like you said, I come back to the traffic stops. Look, I understand some people think that like defunding the police, moving money, maybe that's too radical. Can we agree that no traffic stop should end in death unless someone is literally pointing a gun at you? But from the sound of this, we know that Tyre was running away. Now, was he running with an Uzi to go like shoot up a church? Oh, no. Those are mass shooters and generally white men, and we just leave them alone. Anyway, no, he was not posing a threat to anyone. Let him get away. It's fine. So again, Sandra Bland, right? Keenan Anderson here in Los Angeles just a few weeks ago. And now you have Tyre, and it is, how many times have we do this before we demilitarize the cops, before we take them off traffic duty? We need to save lives. So I think that's the priority here.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we can at least come up to the 21st century when it comes to traffic stops, especially if, they run your plates. I mean, if the person is not a murderer, they haven't been engaged in some type of violent crime, just run the plate and send them the stuff in the mail. Hey, you need to report to court on this day. It should not be this way. And when you said that this country would definitely respond differently if the shoe was on the other foot and it was white children, it reminded me, Francesca, of a quote by Ella Baker, a great civil rights leader of the 21st century. And in 1964, she said the following: until the killing of Black men, a Black mother's sons, becomes as important to the rest of the country as the killing of white mothers' sons, we who believe in freedom cannot rest. And oftentimes we quote the last part of what the great Ella Baker had to say: we who believe in freedom cannot rest, but we don't necessarily tell the whole story. And that was her in reference to what the poignant point that you just made, that this does not become a serious crisis that will be addressed until it's white children at the hands of law enforcement. Because, and it is the very reason why the Black Lives Matter movement was animated in the first place, because it's saying Black Lives Matter too, TOO. And this legal system just does not see Black bodies in the same way. So the police chief, Chief Davis, she had a press. She spoke to the media this morning. Take a look at what she had to say.
That's when Sunday morning is when you first saw the video?
That's absolutely right.
And then when you saw it, what was your reaction?
I was outraged. It was incomprehensible to me. It was unconscionable, and I felt that I needed to do something and do something quickly. I don't think I've witnessed anything of that nature in my entire career. Individuals watching will feel what the family felt. And if you don't, then you're not a human being. And we all are human beings. And I think there will be a measure of sadness as well.
It is rare for a police chief to say that they were outraged, Francesca. That does not happen. Their usually posture is to defend first. Even if they've seen all of the evidence, they default to defending. And so definitely shout out to Chief Davis for being very, very transparent, being courageous, and being honest about what she saw and not mincing words. Because that really is what the community, not just this community, but when we talk about reforming police or law enforcement or just the legal system itself, this really is about transparency and accountability. She handled this situation with that kind of honesty that we would expect all police chiefs to do the same. The NAACP President Derek Johnson, in a statement Thursday, called on congressional leaders to watch it. He said the following: tell us what else you need to vote. Yes, on police reform. By failing to write a piece of legislation, you're writing another obituary. By failing to pass the legislation, you're passing on your sworn duty to protect the people. This is, again, in NAACP National President Derek Johnson. Hey, they haven't passed the George Floyd Policing Act.
No.
That could have happened in the last Congress, 117th. They didn't do it at all. They made that promise, and yet they did not do it. Your thoughts about what the president the president of the NAACP had to say, and/or what the chief said?
Well, I mean, just echoing and underlining what you said, and let's be real. The fact that they were immediately fired, all four of them, and that they're charged with second-degree murder, among other charges, is just a testament to how heinous this crime really is. So when that video comes out, it is going to be gut-wrenching. It is going to be awful. It's going to be inhuman. And we're gonna have to watch it, and his family is going to know that we all see it. And what are we gonna do about it? That's the question. Are we going to all be subjected to this gruesome, awful footage and then go along with our merry lives? No. And then you have Joe Biden, who arguably, and this is something that a lot of liberals, they say, no, that didn't happen. Oh, it did happen. The Black Lives Matter movement translated into Joe Biden's victory. He rode that wave. They didn't have Biden signs out there. We understand that, but the outrage and people taking to the streets, absolutely in response to the far right's narrative also about George Floyd, was definitely a point, many points for Joe Biden. It put him over the edge, specifically with young people and with people of color. And what do? They knelt in kente cloths, and they've done nothing since. And it's not okay. And then they're on the House floor, the Senate floor, screaming, oh, we gotta fund the police, Cory Booker, we gotta fund the police. Nobody wants to defund, as if that's the craziest thing in the world. As if we didn't just see the most massive uprising in a generation take to the streets with that particular cry, and you're not gonna take it seriously? I mean, come on, vote them all out.
Yeah, absolutely. And that kente cloth kneeling was, to me, an insult to the Black community. It's more trinkets and symbols without substance. And hell, most of them don't even know what the kente cloth even means. It was just a bunch of BS that they did. And yeah, President Biden definitely betrayed the family, that he promised that he was gonna do something, that Congress betrayed the George Floyd family as well, and giving more funding to the police without dealing with the deep-seated issues in communities across this country and given those resources for preventative measures instead of the militarization of the police is indeed a problem. Epic fail, and I agree with you, Francesca. Many of those people need to go, hit the road, Jack and Jill, and don't come back no more, no more, no more. So after this horrific attack, Tyre's mother speaks out. Let's take a listen.
People don't know what those 5 police officers did to our family. And they really don't know what they did to their own families. They have put their own families in harm's way. They have brought shame to their own families. They brought shame to the Black community.
Yeah, shame. Hurt your family, hurting the Black community. Because obviously, when you have police officers who are Black, there is a certain expectation in the Black community that there's a deeper understanding. Not that Black officers have to put their lives on the line. I mean, I know routine traffic stops can turn into something violent for a law enforcement officer. It has happened, so we fully admit that. But that was not the case with Tyre. That was not the case in that moment. And so when his mother says the shame to the Black community, the hurt and shame to their individual families. I mean, the fact that she even had the emotional outlet in this time of grief for her to even think about their families, but she is absolutely right. So this tragic situation has many dynamics attached to it. Tyre's murder is yet another reminder of the viciousness or death sentence prevalent within the legal system from the streets, meaning when somebody encounters a law enforcement officer all the way to the courts. No pillars of the legal system, it goes unscathed here. And you know what? Lady Justice ain't blind, but she see Black people just fine. It is a reminder that being Black or brown or being a person of color and even being poor from any walk of life, being so let me step back. What I want to say about this is that it is a reminder in terms of the statement I made earlier. These officers are Black, and sometimes people think that if it's a Black officer, if it's a brown officer, if it's an officer of another color, or ethnic group, and if it's a woman, that somehow they're above it all, not recognizing that there is a culture within law enforcement, and that people who are law enforcement officers are certainly socialized in the same society that we are. So it doesn't matter many times that they are Black or brown or a woman. It doesn't matter sometimes because they have the same outlook on Black people as everybody else, or poor people as anybody else. If there is no a philosophical foundation attached to those identity traits, they mean absolutely nothing. Case in point, what just happened to Tyre? So where is the so-called Blue Lives Matter groups? Bishop Talbert Swan raises some very important questions that we must grapple with in terms of now what is happening to these Black officers and those white supremacist types who just always jump to the side of law enforcement, no matter what the evidence shows, no matter what, but they're not out here now. Let's put up the bishop's tweet. And it's just, again, something to think about. The bishop is not justifying in any way what these 5 Black police officers did at all. He's just giving us some other food for thought. So it took 2 weeks for 5 Black Memphis police officers to be fired and charged in the murder of Tyre Nichols. If only white officers that constantly brutalize, abuse, and murder Black people were held accountable in this like manner. In other words, step up your game in the other cases, not justifying it, but just putting out some important points. And then the bishop goes further to make other important points that we have to think about. Notice that no white person is on here defending the cops that killed Tyre Nichols and saying he should have complied. Why do you think that is? Okay, a very good point. Again, not defending these officers, but like, hey, if they were white officers, that is what some of these folks would be saying. Why do you think? We know why, because the officers are Black. And then the last point that the bishop has made that I think is important. Dear Black cops, don't get it twisted. the system that protects white police officers from prosecution and being held accountable when they brutalize and murder black people doesn't work the same way for you. And again, he's not saying he wants it to work that way. He's just making a point here. 3 very important points that we must grapple with both as a black community and as a larger society in the United States of America. Francesca, I mean, I think the bishop hit the nail on the head on all 3 of those points. I need to underscore, bold, and underline. He's not justifying what those black officers did. He's just showing that there are different standards for different people.
Absolutely, and it's great, and it's important. And this is the thing about racism, is that really what we're talking about is a system of white supremacy, and it is very depersonal. I mean, it behaves differently and affects people differently if you are black in this system. However, it's important to say that yes, black officers can be agents and tools of a white supremacist policing system. It doesn't mean that they're individually racist, right? It means that they are serving a broader system that is structurally designed to treat black bodies and black people like they are inhuman, like they are not actually deserving of their basic human rights met, like they're always going to be criminals, like their only crime is basically existing. And so it is important. And look, man, we know police across this country are having a hard time recruiting, right? They have a really, really hard time recruiting for folks to fill their ranks. And look at this now, where you see like, okay, white officers getting off with the same kind of brutality, black officers, not so much. How's that gonna do for recruitment? I mean, again, that shouldn't be a sticking point for you to join the police force. But look, and you wanna bet, Nina, the amount of let's not cross the thin blue line that happens inside of police forces where crazy kinds of, whether it's microaggressions or overt racism happens to black cops. And they don't say anything because the bigger crime is supposedly, calling out your fellow officer, right?
Yeah, Francesca. I mean, I'm ready to leap out of my seat. All of that stuff, like all of the dynamics. And I have law enforcement officers in my family. My millennial son is in law enforcement, and it's a hard, brutal job at times. I worry about him all the time. He could have been on either side of that.
Right.
In terms of being a black man in America and being a millennial and walking around and not necessarily being as safe because of the skin that he's in. The urban poet Ice Cube said, in a lyric, my skin is my sin. That tends to be the case for black people overwhelmingly when you think about a system. And another point that you made, Francesca, people need to understand this. When we talk about systemic racism and bigotry, the point that you made about black officers or brown officers or women can imitate that same oppressive system, that they are not somehow different than unless they deconstruct their construction. That's why I said there has to be a philosophical awakening tied to being black, tied to being brown, tied to being a person of color, tied to being a woman, if in fact you are in law enforcement. If it is just that identity, which is your racial or ethnic makeup or your gender makeup, that's not enough. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about the communities that you serve? Mm-hmm. Protect and serve is on the outside of most police cars, but law enforcement in this country, from its inception to the very moment, they don't protect and serve. The goal is not necessarily protect and serve, and I'm not talking about individual officers, but I'm saying systemically it has been to control black communities. And why is that? Because law enforcement officers are not separate and apart from the racial dynamics of this country, from the white supremacy and anti-black nature of this country. And yes, are there some law enforcement officers that are enlightened, that come with a philosophical foundation that understands that protect and serve means all people? Absolutely, absolutely. That is absolutely true. Can there be racism and bigotry and anti-blackness in any profession? Absolutely. Is there? Absolutely. No doubt about it. But when you have a badge and a gun, there is an extra dynamic because you have the power of life or death in your hands. Mm-hmm. There has to be a different dynamic to that. So then it is not enough to be like your identity. That phenotype identity is extra. But you gotta come to the table loving the community. You know, Francesca, the last mayor of the city of Cleveland, Mayor Frank G. Jackson, one of the best mayors of this city, once said, he says it all the time, and I love to quote him. He said, you can't serve that which you do not love. And you gotta have a kind of love and reverence for people. Now, if law enforcement officers' lives are really in danger, which they are, many a day, don't get it twisted. Francesca and I are not saying that, many a day. But that day was not the day.
Yeah.
And we cannot continue to justify a system from the streets to the courts that treat Black people differently. And racism is a power dynamic. So although those Black officers were mimicking that and what they did to Tyre, they themselves are not racist.
Right. Because
we're talking about a white supremacy network that Black people or other people of color can mimic. Because I don't want none of that mess about, because people, Francesca, they don't understand what racism really is. It's not about an individual bigotry. It is about social, political, economic power structures.
Yes. But the right deliberately misunderstands that, like, right? Like that's it helps them because all they see is bad apples. They only see individuals, and every time you talk about racism, they're like, "Well, I didn't say the N word personally," right. And you're like, and they use that against, for honestly, small-minded people who don't understand that it isn't personal. It isn't about them. It isn't about me and my ancestors and what do you have got wrong about I'm white. You know, don't be mad at me. No, it's not about you, baby. It's about something way bigger and broader, and the right deliberately makes sure that its audience never understands what racism truly is, which is exactly like you're saying about systems of power.
Systems of power, and I want to recommend a book. Its title is How to Be Less Stupid About Race, Dr. Crystal Fleming. Folks, just it's simple. Just go on and get that book. It'll help you out. So now, and finally, you know, Francesca and I just want all of you to know that we can't lose sight of who this moment is really about. Yes, there are lessons, so many lessons that we can learn and actions to be taken because of this tragic incident. Ultimately, all roads lead back to what happened to 29-year-old Tyre Nichols, a Black man, a son, a father, and a friend. He enjoyed skateboarding and photography. Take a look at this. He was murdered. We're all gonna get to see that video today. His mother is aching, his family is aching, and guess what? His child will be without their father for something that absolutely did not have to happen. We'll be back after this.
Welcome to Indisputable. I'm your host, Dr. Rashad Richard. We got a lot happening today. But what do we do on this show? We tell the truth. You know why we tell the truth? Because the truth is simply indisputable.
Rashad, great to be here. Congratulations on the new show. And I gotta let everybody know that Rashad and I go way back.
Here's the pattern that we see in all of these Karen stories. They think they own stuff they do not own. Now, where does that come from? I don't know, maybe slavery. Maybe they think they should still own Black people.
This is what happens when Karens weaponize the police.
When you're used to privilege, equality seems like oppression.
It hits you in a certain way when someone is holding you against your will, treating you like you're a criminal and you're an innocent person. This is something that Black people face no matter where they are.
A stronger Black economy lends itself to a stronger, greater economy. Don't think it's exclusive of you, it's inclusive of you.
What's your beef with critical race theory?
It adds more fuel to the fire of the racist tendencies that we already have.
We have a generation of problem solvers that can remedy the problem if they are properly taught what the problem is.
You know who created redlining in this country? It was a white liberal.
I don't give a damn who created it. If it's a racist policy, Shelley, here's what I don't know. I don't know. See, there you go filibustering, brother. You're scared of this truth, but you're gonna get it, though.
Climate is changing fundamentally, extremely, and non-linearly. It's becoming worse now. It's not when the levees burst that is the problem. It's in the anticipation of that.
So I hope every human being is safe. And by human beings, I do not include multinational corporations, especially the ones that started climate change in the first place.
What we're currently doing right now in cutting emissions is clearly not enough. There will be ramifications to what Trump is doing. I don't want people to suffer, but I feel like there's gonna be a lot of suffering because we have an imbecile as our leader.
Welcome back to the show. Still, feeling the emotion from that, and I'm gonna say that to you. But we're gonna keep on pushing here. You wanna become a member, you should become a member of TYT. Why don't you do that? You can spin the wheel and get a prize. Sign up for the annual membership to TYT and spin the wheel for an exciting prize. Become an annual TYT member at tyt.com/spin the wheel. When you get your membership confirmation email, land on the prize and wait for delivery via mail. We are able to do what we do and be an independent media source because of people who subscribe. So please subscribe. And from our brother, Ricky Smiley, don't miss Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie on Monday, January the 30th. He'll be joined by the one and only Ricky Smiley, my dear brother, who spent many of his summers right here in Cleveland because he got family members here. Shout out to C-Town and to the Ricky Smiley family. And he is the host of the Ricky Smiley Morning Show. You won't want to miss them break down the news of the week. Tune in at 2:30 p.m. ET and 11:30 a.m. PT. And subscribe at youtube.com/indisputable TYT. And coming up right after this show, tune in right after this show, Galaxy Brain with Ben Carrillo on twitch.tv/TYT. So Francesca, we have some comments from some of our viewers.
Yes, just a few comments. I'm gonna read them out. TYT member Mountain Dragon says, I know these stories are so incredibly tough to see and read about, but I'm truly proud and respect how you strong women hold your heads high while having to report these outrageous and horrifying stories. Your strength gives me strength. Much love. Keep your heads high and proud. Thanks so much, Mountain Dragon. It's nice to know we're all in this together, and that we don't have to, we're not alone, y'all. Everybody, we are all feeling the same feels. And obviously some more than others. Because of who we are. Anyway, on Twitch, Chipmunk says this country needs a do-over. Chipmunk, you're right. You might have a small little chipmunk brain, but goddamn it, you're right. We do need. Let's just do it over. Just a do-over. YouTube, thank you so much. Sammy says women power board with little hearts. Power board. I feel like this like a corporate board, I don't know. It's like a panel but a board. I like it. I'm with it. But thank you so much, Sammy. I think that was a super chat. You're great. And thank you everyone for all the comments and all the super chats and all the love.
Yeah, thank you so very much to each and every one of you. We love and appreciate you. So there is a growing field for the Senate seat that Senator Dianne Feinstein holds in the great state of California. Take a look.
It was believed that what's right matters, that the truth matters, and that decency matters. And when a dangerous demagogue tried to undermine our democracy, I wasn't about to let him. You can't trust this president to do the right thing, not for 1 minute. Today's Republican Party is gutting the middle class, threatening our democracy. They aren't going to stop. We have to stop them. That's why I'm running for the US Senate.
Well, there it is, another person entering this race. Put up this headline, Democrat Adam Schiff announces bid for Feinstein's US Senate seat in the great state of California. And he said the following: I look forward to campaigning hard in this race, meeting Californians where they are and listening to what they want from their next senator. I hope to earn their votes and their trust. I'm glad the representative used the word earn, because some people think they're entitled to these seats. Off to a good start, at least with that, with saying the word earn. Now, Rep. Schiff's entry into the race certainly adds to the growing competition for this race in the 2024 election cycle that is fast approaching. Representative Katie Porter announced her run for this seat earlier this month. And although she has not officially announced, Rep. Barbara Lee told the Congressional Black Caucus that she is planning to run as well. And another standout being mentioned is one and only Representative Ro Khanna. So we don't know if Representative Ro Khanna is going to jump into this race. Some of you may know that Representative Khanna and I both served on the 2020 as national co-chairs for Senator Bernie Sanders' 2020 presidential campaign. So yeah, I hope he jumps into the race, adds some more spice to it. And then there are other potential candidates, and they are as follows so far. We have the Lieutenant Governor Laney, who may get into this race. Attorney General Robb may get into this race, and U.S. Secretary of Health and Human Services Xavier may get into this race too. And then there may be some unknowns. I feel like we should have, Francesca, had a dot that says others or unknown. So it is just, it's getting started. Now, though she has not filed her 2024 re-election paperwork with the FEC, Feinstein, who is 89, has not yet announced whether she plans to seek a 6th full term next year, and has faced criticism over her fitness for the job. That reporting is coming from CNN. Now, she has not made that final decision, and when asked about her timeline, she told reporters that she would make her position known in the next couple of months. When asked about how she felt about other people running for her seat, she said, "Oh, I think it's fine. I think people should, if they want to run. For me, I just need a little more time." So that is coming from Senator Dianne Feinstein. Your thoughts, Francesca?
I've got a lot of thoughts on this race. Number one, I can't help but think about the millions and millions and millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars that are going to be spent on this race in California, and they could be spent on anything else. And oh my God, we need campaign finance reform. And oh my God, I can't believe that we're gonna have this crazy election cycle. Meanwhile, we have a housing crisis in this state. Meanwhile, we have a climate crisis in this state and around this country. But please, yes, of course, rake in the dough. And look, I will be honest with you. I like Adam Schiff. I think he played a really important role in the impeachment hearings. I think he stood up and finally said some stuff that I think, frankly, not even Hillary Clinton had said to Donald Trump or about Donald Trump. We hadn't heard anybody do it. Would I vote for him personally? No. That being said, you know he's a fundraising machine. And sadly, that's the thing that matters in this race. So while my preference, of course, would be someone like Barbara Lee, of course would be someone like Katie Porter, they're much better suited for this job. I am not, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. I'm not naive about that. You have to be raising that money, and Schiff's gonna be raising that money, and he'll do it off of his anti-Trump stance, being on the House Intelligence Committee and leading that impeachment charge. So many thoughts. I love a good debate. I just hate the idea that, again, the amount of wasted money when we know this is gonna be a Democratic seat. One final thing, it's gonna be a jungle primary, meaning the top two are gonna face off. So it's not gonna be a Republican, or most likely won't be a Republican in this state. But I wish we had ranked choice. Ranked choice voting, it works. Yeah, it works in San Francisco, it almost did. Anyway, it works in different cities. I know people have, different feelings about it, but in this case, it would mean that these candidates can go positive on one another rather than going negative on one another, which ranked choice voting leads to more positive campaigns, leads to people teaming up together, which I think is a much better strategy, especially if we want a progressive in that seat.
Yeah, I agree with that. Francesca, so very much. Well, we will continue to watch this as it unfolds, and we will continue to keep you posted on what is happening in the great state of California with regards to that seat. GOP grenades. This is, let's put up his mugshot or footage of him. This is Rep. Corey Mills. Rep. Mills sent out dummy grenades to House members, welcoming his colleagues to a mission-oriented 118th Congress. Now, I'm just trying to understand. That's a new word, understand. Right? Just what kind of mission-oriented 118th Congress could this be, with your colleagues giving you one of the most obscene, just outrageous gifts, welcoming gifts. And a reporter shared an image of the letter and grenade that the House GOP, yeah, there it is in all of its glory. Rep at Corey Mills, Florida is passing out grenades to fellow House members. Yes, that is what that dude did. And the letter states, I am honored to be a part of the Armed Services and Foreign Affairs Committee. In that spirit, it is my pleasure to give you a 40mm grenade made for a MK-19 grenade launcher. These are manufactured in the Sunshine State and developed in the Vietnam War. So I'm just trying to understand this, French. He could have gave him a box of oranges. Really? But the dude decided to give these people some dummy grenades. Very fitting term for him anyway. And it's unclear how many grenades Mills gifted to his colleagues. We don't know. I don't even know if we should consider it a gift, but anyway, that's just me. But who is Rep. Corey Mills? So glad that you asked. And here's an ad he put out in 2022.
I'm Corey Mills, a US Army combat veteran who served in Iraq and Afghanistan. I came home and started a company making riot control munitions for law enforcement. You may know some of our work. And now the liberal media is crying about it.
Corey Mills, soldier, conservative, outsider.
I'm Corey Mills, and I approve this message because if the media wants to shed some real tears, I can help them out with that.
God help us. Really. And of course, Mills also parroted Trump's claims that the election was rigged. So Francesca, have at it.
Look, we've seen a lot of GOP ads, that with everyone's in tactical gear, they're storming a house or doing whatever. It's been great. Marjorie Taylor Greene shooting a Prius for no reason. This says socialism on it. That one particularly chilled me to the bone because he is relishing in the fact that he produces and sells weaponry for peaceful demonstrators. That's him right there being like, I sell tear gas, I sell non-lethal munitions. And notice in his letter, he says, I serve on the Armed Services Committee. Nina, that means he is on a committee lobbying to buy weapons and advocating to buy other kinds of weaponry from a company similar to the one that he just ran. Do you understand the conflict of interest here? He's just openly saying that. Yeah. Sending people a grenade is a little bit in bad taste. And hello, the GOP loves political violence. But also, you just admitted, dude, that's like, I don't know. It's like Nancy Pelosi. She's not invested in the ice cream lobby, but like her sending, some of her like pints of ice cream to everybody, or like, there's better examples than that. It's like Joe Manchin sending everyone a free insulin shot because his daughter, works to up the price of insulin. You know what I mean? Like that level of I am fully and completely corrupt here.
Yeah, full and completely. Leave nothing to the imagination. He letting you know, fully corrupt. And this is like the nature of that body. Unfortunately, they can still trade in stocks, them and their spouses. They make the rules, they get the benefit from the rules. Yeah, totally crazy. Man, next time, give some folks, you from Florida, dude, box of oranges or tangerines, or how about some bottles of orange juice? Would you give them something that they can use? But Jesus, for the love of God, I'm telling you, these people, something wrong with them.
But Nina, he's not invested in oranges. He's invested in weapons. So that doesn't help him.
Does not help him at all. Well, there we have it. Today's GOP in the 118th Congress of these United States of America. Let that marinate. We'll be back after this.
Indisputable has been named the fastest growing news TV show in the United States of America, compared to all shows on CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, and roughly 30 others. What do we do on this show? We tell the truth. You know why we tell the truth? Because the truth is simply indisputable. Donald Trump radicalized citizens. He's the chief terrorist. Republicans still want you to think that critical race theory is the greatest evil that can happen in K through 12 education. It's not even taught. I guarantee you this, David. If he would have taken a knee during the national anthem to bring awareness to the need for more money for cancer research in America, he would not have had that response. It was the fact that he took a knee for black folk and brown folk. You rather pick the voters because you're scared of the voters picking the politicians. It frightens you. But we coming. When you are in a privileged position, equality looks like oppression to you. The Karenicity runs deep in this one. We provide a mirror for reflection and a mirror for correction.
Don't touch me. Don't touch me.
So let's put up the graphic of this Karen in peak performance. Boom. They want anarchy so they can start creating their own rules.
Can you share with me some examples?
When they were running around during the terrorist attack on January 6th saying, hang Mike Pence. So those are the people I'm talking about. That's a problem, correct? You work for Mike Pence, stand up for the guy. Do not allow the ideology of politics to evaporate the humanity that still exists inside of you. They don't stop, I don't stop. Racism won't stop, I won't stop. Systemic bias won't stop, so I won't stop. People still need health care, so I won't stop. People still need criminal justice systems reformed in this country, so I won't stop. And you won't stop either.
Hello, beloveds. I have a big announcement. I'm launching a new daily 1-hour show with the Young Turks called Unbossed with Nina Turner, starting October 17th. We are going to be taking on corruption in all of its forms, whether it's big money, big pharma, the injustice system, the establishment of both parties. All that we love is on the line. They keep coming for the people, not serving the people. Now we're coming for them. Anytime anyone, anywhere tries to take power from the people, that is where we will be together on Unbossed. And not only are we gonna take on these people, we're also gonna have a little joy while we fight. What is life without having some joy? The channel's already up, so go subscribe now, yes, right now, at youtube.com/unbossed, TYT.
It's time to switch to beer.
Oh, man.
Oh, God.
Do your best.
He's a little like...
Let's go! Oh.
Hey.
No one's happy now.
Give him another try.
Oh! Wow.
This is the weirdest game.
We've been around for about 20 years and we have about 20 billion views. Am I proud of that? Hell yeah, I am. We put out 20 billion messages in a bottle. Have we helped to move now 2 generations, millennials and Gen Z, to become progressive? Yes, those numbers are real. We moved generations. Were we the only ones? Of course not. But we have been the largest online news show for now decades.
Welcome back to the show. We are so glad you are here again. Please become a subscriber, spin that wheel, get your prize mailed to you. You want to do that and let your friends and your frenemies know about TYT. Please subscribe. And do not forget that Ricky Smiley will be on with Dr. Rashad Ritchie on Monday, January the 30th. He'll be there. Ricky Smiley is the host of the Ricky Smiley Morning Show, and you won't want to miss them break down the news like it's never been broke. They're gonna break it down righteously. So that is on Monday. Tune in at 2:30 p.m. ET time or 11:30 a.m. PT time, and subscribe at youtube.com/indisputable TYT. And coming up right after this show, tune in to Galaxy Brain with the one and only Ben. You can catch it on twitch.tv/TYT. Francesca, what you got for us, baby?
Hey, just a couple comments. Mickey, a TYT member, says mostly progressive Katie Porter against corporate bot Schiff. We all know who the Dems will back with their endorsements, money, and praise. As usual, the people will want Porter, but the corrupt Dems don't. Yeah, I mean, Adam Schiff is, it does, to me, I could talk about this for forever, but it doesn't take a lot to stand up against a fascist, i.e. Trump. It does take a lot to stand up to corporations who want to buy you and want to make sure you don't change the status quo, as Nina Turner knows. And over on Twitch, Adam says, Nina and her glasses, she always keeps it fresh. Of course, I mean, the mint green, come on. Beautiful, looking good, especially with the hair, it's too much. Mind grifter, that entire GOP got hit by a dummy grenade a long time ago. Yeah.
Love that.
It's just, yeah, indeed. They've been slowly self-imploding.
Yeah.
It's been like a suicide mission. Okay, I'll stop with the analogies. We got more news, I know.
We got more news, but that was beautiful. A thing of beauty. Thank each and every one of you for tuning in, for sharing your comments. We couldn't get to all of them, but we really do thank you so much for your support. We got a little good news, Francesca and I. Yeah, we really, really do. Believe us when we say that we do. So in a world that can be bleak, there is some hope on the horizon. Specifically in Wisconsin, a nonprofit is working on converting an unhoused church classrooms in an unused, I got the church unhoused, an unused church classroom into veteran housing. How about that? The classroom space could easily be converted into up to 16 apartments. That is really a great start, which could be for veterans without homes or those at risk. Beautiful thing, y'all keep that up. Maybe this can be duplicated and scaled up all across the country. You talk about mega recycling. This is a great way to recycle a building. Now, Chippewa Valley Habitat for Humanity Executive Director John Dawson said the following about this project. It's something that we hadn't planned on doing. We were looking more at doing homes, ground up homes that we buy or homes that are tired that we fix up. But this opportunity came about. We looked at it and we just kept moving the ball down the road. Good for you, Habitat for Humanity. And how can the nonprofit afford this? Well, the city of Ewell Cary has selected the Habitat for Humanity proposal to receive a $1.14 million grant through the Federal American Rescue Plan Act. The funding must receive final approval from the Ewell Cary City Council. A vote is planned for February 14th. That is wonderful. And according to the 2022 annual census, Wisconsin found 341 veterans living in emergency shelters or transitional housing. According to HUD data, the number has fallen in recent years. In 2011, there were 607 veterans experiencing homelessness counted according to point in time count that year. But across the country, it is a different story. Let's take a quick look at this map and we see that there are too many unhoused veterans or veterans struggling in this way. So there are so many empty buildings across this country. Other states could learn a thing or two from the great state of Wisconsin. Fran, this is really good.
No, I'm so glad. And I'm looking at that number in California where I'm at, and it's like over 11,000. So when I hear 260, I'm like, wow, that sounds pretty good. And look, it's not gonna take that much effort to house those 260 people. So do it. And look, I all props to Habitat for Humanity. I think they're great. I know they have the infrastructure to do things like this. I am noticing though, however, that is money they're getting from the federal government, and too often, in my opinion, I think nonprofits do the work that the government should be doing directly, but we can't have that, right? We funnel money off of the American Rescue Plan, by the way, passed under President Biden. We have to funnel that money to them, and then we can get the housing. So it's just so many middlemen for what I believe in this country should be a human right, which is the right to live indoors.
Yeah, hello somebody to that. But a beautiful start, and you bring up a very good point. Shout out to Habitat for Humanity, and it is our tax dollars at work. So it is making a whole lot of sense. And I hope that other states take this on as a task as well. And finally, we have not had a bone in such a long time, and we are going to lift up the backbone today. And we have a quote from none other than Minister Malcolm X himself, Malik El Shabazz, that strong leader who stood up against white supremacy and anti-blackness, and also encouraged black people to believe that they too deserve better than what they are getting, to believe in themselves, their beauty and their brilliance. He indicted this country, even taking it all the way to the UN, charging the United States of America with human rights violations against black people. Baby, he struck a chord in this country in a way that very few people have done. We want to lift up Minister Malcolm X and all the great work that he did. And here we go. Here is the quote from Minister Malcolm X. "I have no mercy or compassion in me for a society that will crush people and then penalize them for not being able to stand up under the weight." Again, that's Minister Malcolm X, a spiritual leader and a human rights activist. Please leave that quote up. You can put it side by side with Francesca and myself. But Francesca, I mean, I think this quote is very timely, very apropos for this moment that we are in, like right now, even what we talked about in this show. But also it's a timely comment that Minister Malcolm X made.
Yes, and especially because I think we have to understand that white supremacy, the way it manifests, isn't that it wants to erase black people. It wants black Americans to accept their second-class citizenship. It wants black Americans to accept that they're gonna die by the hands of police officers at rates unseen in any other ethnic or racial category. So that's it. And here is Malcolm X saying, absolutely not. Don't serve me a pile of you know what and tell me to enjoy it. I'm gonna stand up for my rights. I'm an American. I deserve this equal treatment, something the right has forgotten. We're just talking about equality, people. Is that so scary? And to them it is.
Yeah, it is. It's not really a heavy lift. And just the things that Minister Malcolm X talked about, stood up for in the 1960s, it is as if we are reliving that today. You know, friend, I'm reading a book titled The Sword and the Shield, and it is about both Minister Malcolm X and the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. You know, oftentimes in history, especially here in this country, they pit those two men against one another. They lift one up over the other. And make no mistake, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a hated man before he was assassinated, especially when he went up against the Vietnam War and he indicted this country on its militarism, its materialism, and its racism. And what this book really lays out is that both men were fighting for the same cause, that they were together on that cause. They met only one time. God only knows what could have happened along the way in that civil rights movement if they were able to fully work together side by side. I mean, you want to talk about revolution, but this country did not want that. You had the likes of J. Edgar Hoover that had, them bugged all the time, that hired black people to be agents to infiltrate and cause mayhem and chaos in both of their organizations. So this country has really done some pretty vile things to African Americans and to their leaders. But we do thank God for Minister Malcolm X, and what he said is righteous. Let's put that up just one more time, and we will be highlighting him often and lifting him up. I have no mercy or compassion in me for a society that will crush people. Say that, Minister, and then penalize them for not being able to stand up under the weight. And that is socially, that is politically, that is economically, that is in all aspects of this society. He has no respect for it, and neither do I. And I know many of you do not either. Well, that is our time for today. Francesca, thank you so much for joining us. This was a heavy show today.
It was.
I appreciate you being on this journey with me. And anytime. We appreciate all of you for being on the journey with us. We could not do what we do as an independent media source without people like you. So thank you so very much. We cannot thank you enough. And you know exactly what I want you to do about this time. I want you to keep the faith, always, always, always. And more importantly, I want you to keep the fight. Until next time.